Did I go live? Okay, here I am live. Good morning. Good morning. This is Rabbi Brian. It's me. This is a Saturday service. That's now. And it's March 15th, 2025. This is service number 259. I am joined by a lot of people who I can't seem to get up on the screen very well today. There's just Maria. Sorry, Maria. There's the whole crowd of people that I can show for the moment. I'm having technical problems today, so that's going to be our one view of everyone. Memorize where they are, because we are going to mainly be looking at my beautiful face today.
Yay.
Let me take a moment to look at all the beautiful faces of the people who are here. Okay. I have a thought that if we still made business cards, I would have one that said this: Rabbi Brian, a spiritual leader without all the answers.
That'll work. That'll work.
And before the recording, before we went live, we were talking a little bit about whether or not a specific program, we were talking about two different programs, AA and UU, so double letters for both. And we were wondering if those were spiritual programs or not, and we had a little bit of banter about it. And I thought, well, what the heck? We haven't done this for a little while. We have talked about in this group a lot of times spiritual religiousness. And there are 5 or 6 things that make something spiritual religious. I need to take a moment, hold on, before we jump into that, because I find myself feeling really, really, really anxious. And I was just about to blow over that. And I thought, instead, let me just deal with it face on. Because my tendency, I don't know if any of you are human like I am, my tendency is to just rush right over the discomfort and try to get to the work at hand. Does that sound familiar to anyone?
Mm-hmm.
Just pushing over. Okay, if you can't see all the people in the group because we're having technical difficulties today, they raised their hands. People who, yes, thank you for raising your hands. I'm going to go back to that. Just me here. Spiritual religiousness. To be spiritual religious, and this is based off the work of Erich Fromm plus a little bit of Carl Jung. And let's do a little bit of review this morning. 5 to 6 qualities of a spiritual religious life. If you remember one of them, shout it out, would you?
Hierarchy of values.
A spiritual religious life, thank you, is marked by a hierarchy of values. A spiritual religious life means that we prioritize some things over other things. You don't have to take it. Okay, let's get another one. A second quality of a spiritual religious life. Something is spiritual religious if it has a hierarchy of values and
more questions than answers.
Spiritual religious life, as unfucking comfortable as it is not about certainty. Folks, I don't know if you're feeling the pull as I'm feeling, but there is a pull to understand what's going on. There is a pull to be able to make sense out of it. And this, very uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable to not know. But a spiritual religious life is marked by not knowing more than by the knowing. Third quality of a spiritual religious life.
Transformation.
Transformation. John, we'll get to yours in a second. I heard Emily first. That a spiritual religious life is about transforming. Not about changing the world, but about us learning and growing and not being who we were and becoming who we are. Something like that. John, you had another one up there?
I said paradox.
Spiritual religious life is best got to through paradox, where something is true and not true at the same time. In the example that we plugged in, I'll draw a picture. Tell me if you can tell me what this one was about. That a
All
spiritual
about me and not
It's all about you. It's not about you.
Yeah, spiritual religious life is about paradox, and we remember that one, that a spiritual religious life is not about the individual, and it is about the individual. I think we're missing just one. The last quality of a spiritual religious life is that a spiritual religious life concerns itself with trying to connect. There's a phrase that the people in the Hawaiian Islands don't say, that they don't say that the islands are separated by water, but that the islands are connected by water. Spiritual religious life is about connection. Good job, team. I have delighted to see you guys. I wanted to tell you a story. Last week, at the very end of the service, a buddy of mine who used to be my, he was assigned to me when I was teaching high school math, and Chris was getting his master's degree in education, and the school here, Portland State, asked me if I would supervise him. And I said I would be honored to help somebody who wants to learn how to teach. I've been doing this 7 years. Sure, bring him in. So I had Chris was a student teacher, and his supervisor, this is in the summer before school started, his supervisor said to Chris, make sure to get for me, for the supervisor, Rabbi Brian's first 6 weeks of lessons. He wanted the 6-week lesson plan. And I said to Chris, I can't give you my 6-week lesson plan. And Chris said that to the supervisor, and the supervisor called very concerned, what's wrong with this student? What's wrong with this mentor teacher that the mentor teacher can't give me 6 weeks of lesson plans? Have I drastically made a mistake and placed somebody at an internship which is going to fail? And I explained to the supervisor, I said, I can't give you the exact 6 weeks of lessons because I don't know who's going to show up. I don't know who's showing up to the first week of class. And as I don't know who's showing up to the first week of class, I don't know what I'm going to be teaching week 2. For all I know, they understand absolute values really well. Maybe it's an unbelievably slow cohort and it's going to take me 2 more weeks. The point is, I couldn't tell what I didn't know the students I had before me, so I didn't know where it was that I did. I'm having a hard time summing this up, but I have a.
You're doing great.
But I'm looking at your.
Future.
Lynn,
Okay.
Doing just fine, Rabbi.
I
He's
appreciate
asking you to
all.
predict the future on a certain set of rules.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's very hard to predict the future. The reason I bring this up is because that is exactly what happens in this service, and it's what happened here last week. I can prepare all I want for how I think the service should go, but I don't know who's showing up. I don't know what's really on your hearts, and I can run a service that's full liturgy that I've laid out, but that's not the kind of service I want to run. So the service that I want to run is going to be inherently a little more dangerous, a little scarier, because I don't know what it is, where it is you guys are. Okay.
As long as it's heart to heart.
As long as it's heart to heart. I have a note here that liturgy is easy. Doing what we are doing here is much more difficult. And it's also much more intimate. Because I'm asking you guys to share, I'm sharing, and I'm asking you to share as well. And it's much more intimate, and intimate is scary. How are you? Fine. There's nothing intimate about that. How are you? I'm having a really hard time. That's intimate. And as adults, we've lost practice of being intimate. And I'd like us to be, somebody help me out a little bit. Can somebody explain to me where intimate would fit What qualities
It's all
of
about me and it's all about the universe.
You could put intimate in here.
I would put intimate there personally.
And in hierarchy of values, it's more important to be
Yeah,
intimate
hierarchy of
than
value.
than to be right sometimes.
It's
Or-
more important
And
to be
connection.
open
Connection,
and
yeah.
honest. Yeah, we can have intimate being here and connections.
I think that we're all on the journey together. And in all journeys or walks, right? Sometimes you stumble. And so
Yeah.
what you do is get up and go along. Just get up and go on.
But Ray, should we get up and go on pretending like we didn't stumble? Or do we get up and go on?
Oh, no. You accept that you stumbled. You accept that you forgot something. You accept being human. But that doesn't mean you continue on.
Right, you're
'Cause
talking
damn
about
it,
being...
we're all human. We all stumble. We all make mistakes.
We all make mistakes. That's the first line. I'll tell you a quick little story that happened. I know the date it happened. It happened on November 19th, 2006, which was the day my son was 1 day old and I had a panic attack changing his diaper. And I'd never had a panic attack before. And Jane said, as I was changing his diaper and so upset that I couldn't do it right, Jane said, the first rule of the Mayer household, that's our family, is everyone makes mistakes, everyone gets to learn. We all make mistakes, we all get to learn. And our society is unfortunately pressuring us a lot to not make mistakes. I'm a little babbly this morning, and I'm going to be okay with that. I find that I learn the most when I make mistakes, and yet I keep trying to keep from making mistakes.
Well, yes. And if I may, I will tell everyone a little story.
Go ahead, Ray. And Ray, I
As
apologize.
you
I
know,
can't
and
get
some
your
of you
face
know,
up
I'm
on
a
the scale.
baker. I bake maybe predominantly bundt cakes for church. Well, I got this brilliant idea that I would make brownies in a bundt cake. And so I got them up, put them all in. The only problem is brownies don't rise like cake. So I have these very nice, rather pretty because they sort of look like a flower,
Rare
but
rocks.
somewhat flat brownies. So I made a mistake and I learned that I won't make
Flat
brownies
bun
in the
cakes.
butt pan anymore. So that's how life is.
Thank you, Ray.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Bob.
Well, I welcome mistakes because it means
Why?
that
Why do you welcome mistakes, Bob?
because it means that I had an idea to do and I did it. It didn't work, but I will learn something from it.
It's a great
And so
attitude to have.
and so that when people tell me that they've never made a mistake, my reply to that is, I guess you've never done anything then.
Right.
Amen.
So what are we taking from this today? We're taking this idea that it's okay to make mistakes.
Absolutely.
Folks, are you willing? I know you're willing to allow Bob to make mistakes or learning opportunities. You're willing to have Ray make mistakes. How about you?
I'm one big mistake.
Disagree.
Thank you, Meg. Thank you, Jack. Thank you both. Okay. I want to read us.
I do like to.
Go
Can I
ahead, Jack.
interrupt?
Yeah.
I really feel strongly about people realizing that spirituality is one third of our being,
Say more, Jack.
and knowing that it's 1/3 of our being, we can act in a way that we are all loving spirituality, and we're all doing our best to be loving and kind to everyone else.
We are all doing our best to be loving and kind to everyone else. Now, I need you to hear that and extend that even unto the people who you don't like.
Definitely.
If you consider yourself a Christian, the head of the church, a guy named Jesus, not. I heard a distinction recently that there's Christianity and then there's churchianity. But this guy Jesus had this idea that we should love even unto our enemies. It's a crazy idea. And people have been asking me, I've gotten a huge uptick in people asking me, how do I love the people who I hate? And I can answer that. It's really hard. And unless you have conquered and mastered loving yourself, you don't stand a chance at loving your enemies. So stop trying. First, learn to love yourself. And then learn to really love all the people around you. Once you can learn to love yourself and you can learn all the people around you, then maybe you can level up to loving the people you don't like. There's a reason that you can't love all the people you don't like right yet. It's because you're not built up to that level yet. That's boss level. That's really hard. That's one that some of us can get a moment of every so often. It's really hard to do.
Mason Mosley.
Go ahead, Mason.
No, I think that was a phone
Patricia.
call. Did you
it's all
want
funny.
to?
Yes, I do. I want to say hi to the people who are on Facebook. And there are people who are on Facebook who are commenting. And I appreciate you guys commenting. And I have had the goal of incorporating more of the Facebook voices into this group. So if you're on Facebook and I see you, Mary, there's some of you who are in both places, which is awesome. And if you're just on Facebook, would you put a comment in Facebook saying hello? And I'll put one in too, so I know that you're just a Facebook person. Not just a Facebook person, but you know what I'm saying.
I said good morning to them when we started. So
thank you, Holly. Holly, thank you for being de facto Facebook person. And there's my friend
Stacy came over from Facebook. Stacy Lee, sorry, came over from Facebook.
Well, welcome, Stacy Lee. We're glad. We're trying to figure out how to get this service to be a little bit more hybrid in both. I want to share, I'm going to switch gears, and I want to share with you some answers. These answers are in Hebrew. This is from the Mishnah from section Avot. It's actually from part 3, Gimel. It's not from part 3. It's actually from part 2. That should be a bet, but don't hold me to it. Here's what it says. It says, Hu Amar. It says, he's said. Hu Haya Amar. He used to say. He used to say. And then here's where the quote starts. He, in this case, I think was Rava, was the last guy speaking. He used to say, no, lo is a negative, meaning not. You know the word alechem? It's like the Arabic alekum, salam aleikum. Aleikum means to you. It is not to you, hamlacha ligmor, to finish. It is not for you to finish the work. It is not for you to finish the work. Velo ata ben chorin libatel mimena. And it is not for you, a child of freedom, to desist from it. Let me put that into a little cleaner English. It is not for you to finish the work. Nor are you free to desist from trying.
Heard that before.
Yeah, it's a famous phrase. You are not to complete the work. What work? The work in front of you. It is not for you to finish doing that work. How are we going to bring peace? We're going to try. It is not up to me to finish that work. But similarly, I am not a free child to desist from trying. I'm going to say it one more time. Lo alecha hag ligmor. It is not for you to finish the work. V'lo ata ben chorin lehibatel mimena. I'm not saying that word right. I'm going to pass. That's all right. Nor are you a free person to desist from trying. I'm going to put that up in English in a moment. I'll put it on the 2-point summary, so if you watch your inbox, you'll get that emailed to you. I'm going to go back to my little outline here. Okay. Hi, folks.
Hey, Rabbi.
Hi. Hello. Glad to see you. Hey, I have a question, and let's see where this goes. What were you expecting from today's service? What were you expecting?
You told us it would be special.
I told you
You
it would
told
be
us it would
special.
be
So
important.
you're thinking it should be important and special. Thank you, Barb. What are you expecting today?
To learn and to share wisdoms with the other members of the congregation.
I love that. I see some
Enjoy
people
the
doing thumbs up.
conversation.
You're expecting to enjoy the conversation. Anyone else? Yeah, Bob, and then Janet.
I thought you were going to be on vacation.
I'm going on vacation for the next 2 weeks, so I will not be here the next 2 weeks. Today I am here. Go ahead, Janet, and then Ron.
Okay. Normal, delightful chaos.
Ha 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 ha. Well, we can do that. Ron?
I have a poem for the poetry room, but I want to read just 2 little stanzas because a wistful thought, a hopeful belief, a fantasy imagined, an expectation I'd like to meet. But why does my imagined reality fail to complete my heart's longing? Seems so out of reach.
Thank you, Ron. Poetry has a way of getting where other words can't.
Mm-hmm.
Al? And then Emily?
Yeah, I was expecting to be surprised and delighted. You delivered on all counts.
Okay, so we've at least satisfied one person so far. So we're doing really well.
Good.
I saw Emily's hand up. Yes, Emily.
Community. To see
Yeah.
everyone here.
Yeah. Diana?
To be comforted and inspired.
To be comforted and inspired.
Inspired.
Not expired. That would be bad. I have a little spiel that I'm going to read in a second. Before I do that, I want to quickly return to something we talked about last week, which were tips for staying calm in the fear. And I have a tip. This is based off of a quote from Maya Angelou. She said, "Hope and fear are opposites. We needn't invite in more fear." She didn't say it in exactly those words. This is my gloss on Maya Angelou. Hope and fear are opposites. We needn't invite in more fear. Fear's going to happen by itself, folks. What we can do is we can try to adjust the pH of the pool we're swimming in, and the fear is going to go up. And it's very hard to knock the fear down. What we can do is we can up the amount of hope we have. We can up the amount of love that we have. And that's what I want us to talk about today. I remember in a business class once, I heard the phrase, offer them, the person buying, offer them a perfect solution to their problem. Offer them a perfect solution to the problem that they face. If you can be the perfect solution to someone else's problem, it's very easy to sell them what it is that you have. How do we become the perfect solution to someone else's problem? How do we market the thing that we have to be a perfect solution to someone else's problem? 2 notes. 1, what I'm about to say is not really perfect. It's not a perfect solution. What I'm about to share is a pretty darn good solution, and it's got some problems with it too. So I'm going to be honest, it's not a perfect solution. Second thing, the phrase perfect love is a triggering phrase for some people. It doesn't have to be triggering for you. I just need you to know that if you say the phrase perfect love, it's going to give some people a little bit of pause and repulsion. So here's what I wrote. I'm Rabbi Brian, and I don't need to awaken within you words to describe your symptoms. You already know the problems that you face. I don't need to remind you of them. It reminds me, I heard a missionary once interviewed on NPR, and the missionary said, in order to truly sell Jesus' salvation, you have to first sell the idea that people are sinners. Ooh. Kind of gross to my ears that you have to convince people that they've done something wrong so that you can sell them the salvation from the problems that they had. But that being said, I don't want to sell you to have more fear so that I can sell you the tonic to get rid of more fear. I don't need to awaken within you words to describe your symptoms. You're already primed for a new approach, so I want us to seriously talk about love. Let me and this community that we have here, the Religion Outside the Box community, teach and remind and encourage us about love. I want to read to you. It's from this book. I wrote this book. It's pretty awesome. I have 2 left in stock. If you don't, I want to read to you from a section called Love. Practice loving your apparent enemy. Salem, Oregon, 2017. Emmett is 11, Annie is 9. We are in Salem, Oregon's capital, for a women's march. Jane and I joke that the kids are learning local geography from attending protests. We, along with other people unhappy with the State of the Union, are in front of the Capitol building, which looks like a cross between the White House and a Mormon church. There's a man standing on the left corner across the street with a PA system preaching that we are all sinners. On the right corner, there's a man waving a Nazi flag. Inspired by Daryl Davis's documentary, Accidental Courtesy, I have a compulsion to go over and talk to one of them. Before I decide which, I see someone approach the man with the flag and shove him. He falters. I silently root for him not to fall. He stays up. I have mixed feelings about it, but I know my priorities, and violence is never the answer. I cross the street to address the Fire and Brimstone's megaphone evangelist. I giggle to myself for a moment. I've just had the choice between two, and this is the lesser of the two evils. I don't know what I'm going to say until I hear his amplified, slightly tinny voice say, "There's not even a preacher here besides me." That's my entrance. "Brother," I say, "you're not the only preacher here." He moves the microphone from his mouth so that he and I can talk. I say, amazed that the right words seem to be coming out of my mouth, "It must be really scary for you to be where you are right now." He looks at me with hesitation in his eyes, and he says, "It's scary. This is not what I like doing, but it's what I need to be doing." We exchange names and handshakes. "Can I help?" I ask earnestly, not certain what I am offering. He says, "Would you pray with me?" I say, "I'll be glad to." What comes to mind is to sing a very calm, soothing, grounding prayer for peace, O say shalom, the final lines of a 13th century Aramaic prayer with its origins in the book of Job, chapter 25. It's beautiful, almost haunting. O say shalom bimromav. But I think better of leading with Hebrew, and I stammer, "We come from slightly different traditions, you and I." "That's not a problem," he says. "We're both Christians."
Oops.
"Well, I'm Christian enough," I say. It gets awkward. He's just seen my head covering. He hesitates skeptically and he says, "Do you believe Jesus Christ is the only God?" "I hate binary," I say, and I continue with William Blake's retort when asked the same. "Jesus is the only true God, and so am I, and so are you." Wrong answer. Jason turns from me and flips his microphone back down. "We are not gods," his megaphone intones. "We are not gods," he says again and again. "We are not gods." "Brother," I say, "I'd sure like to pray with you." "You are not my brother." Jason, you might want to check your Bible. I'm pretty sure that I am." He turns his back to me, picks up again about the wages of sin, and I go back to my side of the street and my family. About 15 minutes later, I hear a man unamplified shouting at Jason. Vehemently. I can't stand idly by and witness this abuse. As Jesus, to whom Jason is devoted, said in Matthew 5:45, "There is no righteousness in loving those we love. Even the hypocrites do this." Before I'm able to get to Jason, a red-faced, screaming woman adds her voice to the man shouting. I make my way between the two shouters and I see Jason, and I call for a few folks standing around looking helpless. "Let's make a love circle around Jason." I put my arms out to demonstrate. 4 or 5 of us hold hands around Jason and form a barrier to keep him from those shouting at him. It is holy. Outnumbered and outclassed, the shouters, the people on my side politically, disperse. Sometime after I've returned to my family, I look up to see Jason walking off with police officers on either side of him. Oh no. I catch up just as the cops and he are parting ways. I say, "Jason, I hope you're not feeling like you were thrown out of here." "No," he says, and our eyes meet. I see for a moment into his beautiful, beautiful soul. I imagine him as a little child being abused and thinking abuse means love. I figure, why else would someone put themselves out to be abused if not to reenact some childhood trauma? We walk at the same pace in silence until he says, "I don't even like doing this. I'm a shy man." He tells me he's glad we've met and how I can find him on the internet if I look up YouTube for Oregon Jesus Preacher. Later, I look him up and I see accounts of his many other protests, including some where he's been knocked unconscious by people on, quote, my side. I leave a comment on his YouTube channel. "Brother Jason, it was beautiful to get to meet you in Salem. It was a highlight of my trip." He hearts my comment and writes, "I looked at what you put up on the web and I think you have some interesting things." Later, and it hurts my heart to see, he takes this exchange of YouTube down and deletes it. So the question I have is, and imagine I'm asking you. You don't have to answer, and I'd love to hear some answers from people who haven't yet spoken, but you don't have to answer. Don't feel too much pressure. Do you really want to sit down and love your perceived enemies? I can tell you how to start. We can start by not shouting at the people and shaming the people in the car in front of us who didn't use their blinker and merged too tightly in front of us. We can start by loving those people. We can start by loving ourselves despite how cruelly we can treat ourselves. And then we can learn to love our enemies too.
I had an exchange once with someone on Facebook. They were vehemently, acerbically expounding their belief on something. And I responded with a comment to just help make them maybe think about what they had said. They were classifying all people in a certain category as being one way. I think it was something about the parasites thing that's been going around, you know, people who are entitled and they're parasites and whatever. And she responded back, but what about, you know, such and such? I can't remember the exact exchange at this point, but we got going further, and it turned out that she had been through a lot herself. She was trying to say, you know, people need to stop whining and just, you know, get with the program. And at the end of it, I told her, I said, you know, you have been through a lot. It's amazing what you've been through. And I'm sorry you had to go through that. And by the end of it, we were actually on the same page.
That's beautiful, Holly.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
But she needed to be heard, but what she was putting out there wasn't what she needed to be heard about. She needed to be heard about something completely different. Yeah. And that wouldn't have come out if I had responded with more anger. So.
Right. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. People want to be seen and heard. Carol.
Rabbi Blumenthal had a very important statement. You can't love your enemy until you are no longer abused. In other words, at this point, when people are being fired every day, when the things we need to live on are being taken away from us, we can't love Trump.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you. We do not need to love those who are hurting us and people who are actively hurting us. Thank you for pointing out that huge blind spot that I neglected. We are not to just take abuse. That's correct.
So I can give up on loving Trump then.
Is it something you want to do, George?
Well, it makes sense to me because disliking him is uncomfortable for me, and I don't enjoy hating anybody. I don't usually even admit to hating anybody, but I see getting to love someone as eliminating one of your enemies.
Correct. If you can get that to happen. I think, George, you're pointing out an important point, which is this something we want to do? Because if it's not something we want to do, let's stop kicking ourselves for not doing it.
Well, the point I was making is this guy's abusing all of us. You helped me at one point when I asked you how I could figure out how to love Trump, and your comment was, "You're not the Dalai Lama."
Right.
I took that to heart, and I thought, yeah, that's a job for professionals and not me.
unless you want to, if you want to try your hand at boss level loving your enemy like that, then try. But if you don't want to try, don't try. Let's take from Linda and then Bob. Thank you, Linda.
For me, it feels like I don't have to love Trump. I don't have to love lots of people, but I feel I need to at least hold on to the notion that I might love the potential of them. And sometimes when I'm feeling really lost in all of that, I remember a newborn baby, Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, that was a lovable being with worth and all of the potential in the world. And something got broken, but I can still go back and I can love the baby that was or the potential that is.
Great. If you want to try your hand on it, that's a great way of going. Thank you, Linda. Bob, Mary, then Ron, and Patricia.
There's a difference between loving the person and loving the action. And I think that for me, I am called to love the person, and I think that sometimes the person whose actions are not lovable hasn't really experienced true love.
And to experience true love, here I have a quote. Mary, I'm going to interrupt before we come to you. Here's a quote that Jack just taught me this week. It is by failure that we know we are loved. It is in our not doing things perfectly that we know we are loved. I just put this up and I thought, you know what? That wasn't exactly on point. It wasn't exactly following from what Bob just said, but you know what? That's okay.
We love you.
It's okay. Because thank you, Rita, because you love me anyway. It's by my failure. It's the fact that I mess up a little bit. That's how I know I'm loved. Thank you all. Go ahead.
You left the R.
Mary?
Left the R out.
Yes.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second. Yes, I left out the word R.
It's okay.
Question. Does it need to be pointed out?
Yes, I say.
No. We knew what you said the right thing.
It's up to each of us. It's all good. It's all good. I appreciate it.
I'm a recovering perfectionist, so I try to let things slide that I notice.
Thank you, Mary. Go ahead.
I do have a little bit more to say on that other subject.
Go ahead, Mary.
If I find that I cannot come to love someone, then I pray for them. Now, I may have a selfish desire that I pray for them to become a person I can love, and I don't know if that's selfish or if that's justified.
It sounds kosher to me.
I do. That's what I do.
Hey, you still remain loving.
Yeah.
You find loving where you can. I think that's the point is we don't have to love perfectly, but we can make mistakes. We can still be loving towards. Let's take Ron, then Patricia.
Well, I was going to comment on one thing, but I got to comment on the other about the failure and the loved. The failure is when we really love someone or love something or want something. Failing at it is because lets us know that we loved the thing we failed at. So I would say that with and without the R are both valid statements, but they're talking about something different.
It's very fair. And what was your
And
other comment?
the other is, I remember so many times evangelical folks telling me that they hate the sin but love the sinner before they then go into the most hateful, noxious attacks that you can have. And, that's the problem with trying to love the orange one. It's how do we, and I don't have an easy answer.
We don't have easy answers. That's part of the fun of where we all are. Patricia.
There was an incident in which I was verbally attacked by this woman, just was not pleasant at all. And so I said, well, I hope I never see her again. Well, now I'm in an instance in which I have to see her 3 times a week. So I said, how do I deal with this? So I thought, okay, I'm going to be overly nice to her. And you should have seen her eyes bug out when I said, good morning, and how are you, and everything else. And she just didn't know how to handle it. And she is now civil to me. But now I'm practicing your phrase about your friend could spill something in your lap and you wouldn't mind it, but so I'm working on that now because everything she does irritates me. So I'm working on just let it go, just let it go.
Thank you, Patricia. For those of you who are not familiar, it was a quote from Irving Becker. And it's one of my favorite my favorite quotes ever. And it lets me know how annoyed I am at somebody. It says, if somebody annoys me, the way they hold their spoon, this is a spoon. If somebody annoys me, the way they hold their spoon will offend me. But if they liked me, they could drop a plate of spaghetti and meatballs. That's what this is a picture of. If I dislike someone, the way they hold their spoon will offend me. But if I like them, they could drop a plate of spaghetti and meatballs in my lap, and I wouldn't mind. Those who we don't like can't do anything right. And Patricia, I love what you said. If you can find something that person does that you can give a compliment to, that you can be a little bit more loving about, it turns the whole table. There's a T.S. Eliot quote. I think it was T.S. Eliot. I'm going to have to check it. There was a quote that said, love your enemies. It certainly confuses them. Also, George, you made reference to it. If you learn to love your enemies, there's nobody to have as an enemy anymore. Maria, would you take us over to prayer time, please?
I will. These are the people to whom we are sending light and love. Alex T., Sheridan H., Aru Lane Hill, Ebony, Ron and Fran Spagna, Ron and Julie New, Mary Wolf, Mary Ellen D., the Tadeo family, Maceo and Joyce, Chris Spano, Judy Love in Spirit and her family, Alex, all the unemployed, all the homeless, everyone who lives alone. May they encounter love and feel loved. All those who are contemplating suicide, and Gwen. If there is another person in our community to whom we can offer light and love, please put their name in the chat and I will add them to the list on Facebook. And for the people who aren't named, but are in our thoughts, we send them light and love as well.
Thank you, Maria. We'll take a minute at a time. Well, thank you. I want to talk about this for a moment. Oh, I have to do announcements before I do that. Announcements. This one. This is always important. What's this one say?
It's okay not to be okay.
We need to know this. We need to know this one really, really, so that when things aren't okay. Remember about stress? What does stress do to our competency?
Reduces it.
It reduces it. Unless we know this at level 5, so that when stress comes, we get knocked down to level 4 and we can still remind ourselves that it's okay not to be okay. We need to know this one deep in our hearts. It's okay not to be okay. It's the reason we do this every single week. Quick announcements. Next week and the week after, Lori, Religion Outside the Box's stalwart intern. I don't really know what stalwart means exactly, but it sounds right.
It sounds good.
It sounds good. Lori will be running the service. I'm going to say something to all of you that I used to say to my students when a substitute teacher was coming. I will be coming back. I do not want to hear from the person who was serving as a substitute to help me out anything negative that you did not like or any way that any of you were not nice to the substitute. I trust you all very with that. 2, I used to also say this to my classes right before spring break. I didn't say it every year, but let me say this. My spiritual barometer is showing that I am near burnout. I am cooked. So what I want to say to you as I'm about to take 2 weeks off from this service is this. And this is what I used to say to my classroom students before spring break. And I would say, listen, we've been together a really long time. I need a break. It's not you. It's me. And I need to see some other people for a little bit so that I can come back and love all of you as best as I can. So I am taking care of myself for 2 weeks. You will not be getting emails from me. You will not be getting phone calls from me. You will not get responses from me. I will not be around for 2 weeks because I need to do some self-care. I need to do some serious self-care so I don't burn out to a crisp. I knew I was in a hard time because more people were holding their spoons incorrectly. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
There was an uptick in how people were holding their spoons. And usually I could just laugh and go, oh, look, they're holding their spoon wrong. But I started to take it as offensive of how dare they hold their spoon like that? What is wrong with them? So I need to take a little bit of time off. In a few minutes after we stop the recording, we'll go to breakout rooms. We have, folks, here's something I don't understand at all. And I wasn't here for it. I don't get it. We have deep dive where people talk about the topic that we talked about in the service and go deeper into it. There's the more to share room if you don't feel like you got enough airtime and you want to share more. There's a poetry room and there was a politics room. And last week, exactly this many people besides the host showed up to the politics room. The only thing that's weird about that was I heard that deep dive and poetry were filled with politics. I don't get it. It's not for me to get. But let me just remind you that there's a politics room if you want to be in politics, if you want to talk about politics. The poetry room is to talk about poetry, not politics. The deep dive room and the more to share room are to talk about the topics we dealt with today, which is loving our apparent enemies and loving ourselves a little bit, or whatever you took from today. And the more to share, okay, all good. Any other announcements that I'm missing?
I put the links to join the contact.
Oh, thank you, Maria. If you want to be in touch with other people, I'm taking off for the 2 weeks, but that doesn't mean that you don't want to contact each other. If you would like to be part of the Religion Outside the Box contact list, follow the link that is only here on Zoom. It is not on the Facebook thread, so you do have to come over to Zoom to be part of that. Okay, moral of the story. What's the moral of the story? What's the lesson you're taking with you? What would fit on a bumper sticker? I'd love to hear from voices I haven't heard from.
We have it.
I see that in chat. I got it. I got it, Maria.
Right.
There we have it from Stacy. Stacy Lee says, "Stay hopeful." Hard to do.
You gotta love yourself first.
Who said that?
Gord.
Gord, say that again, please.
You've got to love yourself first.
Yeah. I have to love myself first. I'm never going to be able to love my enemies unless I love myself.
We're all human, and we need to take care of each other.
We are all human. There's one type of people, those who die. Dark but true.
Never stop loving.
Never stop loving. Amen.
Yeah, love is the answer.
Love is the answer. It doesn't matter what the question is. Try to put all of you on the screen again. Look at all the faces, please. Oops, that's just Jack. Close up on Jack. Sorry, Jack. There's everybody's faces. Folks, there are good people in the world. Let's remember that we are part of them. I'm going to stop the recording now. Thank you to everyone who's here. I don't know what's going on with my screen.